Everybody, my name is Jaden.
I'm Eli.
I'm Jason.
I'm Caden.
And we are the Yahoo and the Torah YouTube channel.
Thank you very much for hanging out with us. Thank you very much for being a part of our family. Our family is your family is our family. And we love you guys very, very much. And the events of the year 2019 and 2020, for those that have eyes to see and ears to hear, were incredibly difficult for a lot of people. Our family, we live out in the middle of a jungle. We live off grid. And we went through many years where we had no income whatsoever. We had no way to ever get anything extracurricular. There was many, many times and many, many months that we would go through months without food, without any kind of fresh food whatsoever. And our provider has provided us with barrels of lentils. And the one food that we always had that we never ever ran out of were lentils. And we had just happened to have a ton of lentils, but as far as getting fresh veggies or any kind of fresh food, that didn't happen. A lot of times it did not happen. So we learned to kind of run off the grid. We learned to kind of survive in a certain way. Now that works for human beings. And when you have a child, that's one mouth to feed. When you have two children, that's two mouths to feed. But when you have 10 pit bulls, life becomes a lot different because you will end up with 10 mouths to feed along with your family of mouths to feed. And the thing about human beings is we don't get too extremely crazy when we don't have something to eat. But when you have 10 pit bulls, when you don't feed them, they are going to get extremely aggressive and they're going to be very not friendly. And so we had to come up with a way that we were able to get food for our dogs. One of the ways that we decided we were going to get food for our dogs is we have what you would call super pellet guns, and they're simply BB guns that are just pumped up really high. And so there was a time when we decided the only way that we were ever going to figure out how to get meat for our dogs was to go out and hunt little tiny birds. And for those who do not know what hunting little tiny birds is, it is a very nasty endeavor. And what you get is with a bird, a normal sized bird, there is hardly any meat at all on these birds. And so you would have to clip an entire bag of birds and clean these birds. And all you're looking for is the little chest. You can use the little tiny heart, but you have to get ginormous birds to ever get any kind of substance of meat. And so there was a time when we had nothing to feed the dogs except a little bit of bird meat, and we had flour. We had flour that had gone bad, flour doesn't last very long. And so we had a stock of it, and it just had gone completely bad. And so there was a good solid, I would say over a year and a half, maybe two, where we were sitting there every single day stirring up flour and putting some lentils in the flour, trying to find as many nutrients as we could. And we were cooking the dogs food every single day, every single meal. And instead of them having bowls of food, we would have trays of food, and we'd have to sit down and sit there and feed them. And it was a very, very interesting time of our lives. But one of the things that we can always say is that our Creator always provides. And when you see the word Yahuwah, it means Yah provides. And I know there's a lot of folks out there with a lot of these same situations where our Creator has miraculously made things happen. But for us and our family, that has happened to us over and over and over. And that's just simply one example of how our Creator has allowed us to do things and to have things to where we are able to keep our family alive and keep them surviving through that. Today's lesson is called He Will Provide. And we are reading Genesis 22, 1 through 14. Verse 1. And it came to be after these events that Elohim tried Abraham and said to him, Abraham. And he said, Here I am. And he said, Take your son now, your only son Yitzchak, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah, and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains which I command you. And Abraham rose early in the morning and saddled his donkey and took 2 of his young men with him, and Yitzchak his son. And he split wood for the burnt offering and arose and went to the place which Elohim had commanded him. And on the 3rd day, Abraham lifted his eyes and saw the place from a distance. So Abraham said to his young men, Stay here with the donkey while the boy and I go over there and worship. and come back to you. And Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering and laid it on Yitzchak his son. And he took the fire in his hand and a knife, and the two of them went together. And Yitzchak spoke to Abraham his father and said, "My father." And he said, "Here I am, my son." And he said, "See, the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for a burnt offering?" And Abraham said, "My son, Elohim provides for himself the lamb for a burnt offering." And the two of them went together. And they came to the place which Elohim had commanded him. And Abraham built an altar there and placed the wood in order. And he bound Yitzchak his son and laid him on the altar upon the wood. And Abraham stretched out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. But the messenger of Yahuwah called to him from the Shamaim and said, "Abraham, Abraham." And he said, "Here I am." And he said, "Do not lay your hand on the boy, nor touch him. For now I know that you revere Elohim, seeing you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me." And Abraham lifted his eyes and looked and saw behind him a ram caught in a bush by its horn. And Abraham went and took the ram and offered it up for a burnt offering instead of his son. And Abraham called the name of the place, Yahuwah-Yireh, as it is said to this day, on the mountain, Yahuwah provides. Okay, this is called He Will Provide. If you guys are reading the scriptures with us in a year, right now you guys today will be on Genesis 18 and 19 and Matthew 6, 1 through 18. And Abraham said, "My son, Elohim provides for himself the lamb for a burnt offering." Genesis 22:8. A member of an assembly, Roy S. Nicholson, told of a time when he had no money to buy food. Determined to trust Yahuwah for his needs and not tell anyone, he and his wife presented their case to the Lord in prayer. The next morning he set the table for breakfast, confident the Lord would provide something to eat. Just then a boy from their assembly came to the house with a sack of flour and some milk. Tears welled up in the man's eyes. No sooner had he left than Granny Turner appeared at the door carrying a large serving tray with beef, eggs, grits, and gravy, hot biscuits, butter, jelly, and orange juice. Nicholson was filled with praise to Yahuwah. Abraham faced an even more serious test of faith. Yahuwah had told him that he would become the father of a great nation, but then Yahuwah asked him to sacrifice his promised son Isaac on the altar. How could Abraham do such a thing? Many years of trusting Yahuwah for his long-awaited son had taught him that his confidence in Yahuwah would be fully rewarded. Elohim will provide for himself the lamb, he told Isaac. Faith like that is not born in a day. It's the result of years of seeing Yahuwah's faithfulness to his promises, and it grows as we daily choose to believe what he says and follow in his Torah. Reflect and pray. Lord, forgive us for not trusting you more. When we face times of testing, may we follow Abraham's example and believe you will provide exactly what we need. Man's poverty is never a strain on Yahuwah's provision. All right, gentlemen.
All right, so we learned from the book of Jasher that Abraham's testing was from Satan. He went to Yahuwah. He's like, "Have you tested my servant Abraham?" And Satan goes, "Let's try Abraham." And he goes to have him sacrifice his son. And he's like, so when you're tested or times of trial, it could be a test to see if you are worthy, to see if you are truly that person. Will you curse Elohim? Will you follow through with his plan? Or will you back down and not have the faith like Abraham had?
Absolutely. And we see that a lot in the scriptures. We see that from the book of Job, where it is completely a test, where all of the afflictions that came upon Job were simply will you trust in Yah? Will you turn away from him? And are you qualified to make this kingdom path? And the kingdom path is very, very clear that inside of Revelations that the Satan always tries to take out the Torah keepers. Now, if you guys are in the Torah, which is Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, then all of a sudden you have a target on your back. The Christians who are not worshiping on the right day, who do not follow the laws of our Creator, who do not care, and who do not love our Creator with all their heart, mind, and soul, do not have that same target on their back, because in a sense they are already in Satan's hands. And so Satan wants to war and make war with those who are Torah keepers. But in the end, Yahuwah will always provide. And he loves you. He knows the amount of hairs on your head. He knows every situation you're in. We don't have to bring it up to him. But it is good that we pray constantly and we seek him and we call out to him for our needs, and he will always provide for you. All right, guys, with that, we will call this a day. Have a good day.
All right.
Shalom.